What is going on, everyone? Francotech here, back with another review video, and today I'll be taking a look at easily my most anticipated device of this year, the LG V10. So without wasting any time, let's get straight into the review. Starting off with the review, let me just tell you that this is a beautiful and very premium feeling device. It is on the larger side, so for those of you that aren't fans of huge phones, then this might not be for you. However, even though it is a large phone, it does have a very nice grip in the hands thanks to the all-around DuraGuard design and the stainless steel side. So you won't need to worry about it slipping out of your hands. And if for some reason you happen to drop the phone, well, no worries. The LG V10 has obtained a military standard certification for a drop test. This time around, LG decided to not go with a curved display or back. Instead, they went with a nice flat back that rounds off slightly on the sides, which feels a whole lot better in my opinion. The DuraGuard skin also helps prevent scratches on the back of the phone, and it does not attract any sorts of lint or fingerprints. Now, something I have noticed with the V10 is that it is also very similar in weight to the iPhone 6s Plus, with both phones coming in at around 6.7 ounces. So it is on the heavier side, but for me, phones at this weight feel a whole lot more comforting in the hand. But really guys, this has to be one of the top quality feeling phones out there. It screams quality, and when I think about very premium feeling devices, this is what I'm talking about, and this is what I've wanted for a while now. Anyways, taking the tour around the phone, at the front we have our 5.7-inch IPS display with the resolution of 2560 by 1440, and this is a very beautiful looking display with some really great viewing angles and really thin side bezels. The colors are very accurate, and noticeable pixels are a thing of the past thanks to the 551 pixels per inch. And of course, all of this adds up to a really great entertainment experience, from watching movies and videos to playing mobile games and more. Right above the display is where LG has implemented two new features. On the left we have the dual 5-megapixel cameras, which I'll talk about later on in the review, and to the side of that is our secondary display. Now, unlike Samsung, who has their secondary display on the edge of the device, LG has placed theirs at the top of the V10. It's a 2.1-inch display with a resolution of 1040 by 160, and it does pretty much what you would expect to come from a secondary display. When the primary screen is off, the secondary screen will show you your notifications, as well as some favorite contacts, a media player, any upcoming plans, app shortcuts, and a signature. And when the primary screen is off, the secondary screen will show you your notifications, the time, date, and weather, along with your battery percentage and some quick toggles for the flashlight, volume profiles, Wi-Fi, and the camera. And of course, like with many other LG devices, all of this is customizable. You can tweak everything in the settings to only show you what you want to see, but of course, if you don't want to use a secondary display, it can be disabled in the settings. Now, there is one downside: the fact that it's placed at the very top of the phone. With an already large screen, it is going to be harder to reach the secondary display when holding the phone with one hand, but then again, that's why we have two hands. Continuing with the tour, like previous LG devices, we don't have anything on the sides because all of the main features are on the back. But on the bottom of the phone, we do have our 3.5mm headset jack and our single speaker, and next to that is the USB charging port. And going back to the headset jack, if you're a huge audio buff, then good news. The LG V10 comes with a 32-bit hi-fi digital to analog converter, which will bring you some really great audio when listening to music with headphones on. There's a very noticeable difference, and it's awesome. As for the speakers on the phone itself, it's a single downward facing speaker, and really I didn't expect much from it, but I was actually a little impressed. It's no boom sound or anywhere near that, but the audio on the V10 was actually pretty good, with some crispy lows and some non-distorted highs. On the back we have our volume and power buttons, which, like I always say, is a great placement for them, and this time around they also come with the DuraSkin on top. So they have a very nice texture, and they are very distinguishable from each other. And here on the power button is where you will also find your fingerprint scanner, which allows you to unlock the display and keep your phone protected. And in my use, it's been very accurate, fast, and responsive, with no complaints at all. It takes a while to set up, but it's great to use afterwards, and you can also link up to 4 different fingerprints. Above that is the 16-megapixel camera with laser autofocus and dual LED flash, which LG has really been hyping up. But again, we'll talk about all of this later on in the review. The one thing that LG does right and many others do wrong is the fact that we still have a removable back panel. This is just one more reason that made me and many others want to pick up this device. It's a very simple feature to add, but one that I feel is necessary. Underneath the back panel, we can find our 3000 mAh battery, which I'll talk about later on in the review, and next to that our SIM and micro SD card port, which is expandable up to an outstanding 2 terabytes of memory. and 64 gigabytes of internal memory are already included. And while really I don't know anyone who needs this much memory on their phone, it's still really great and really impressive to have. Moving over to the hardware side of things, like many flagship devices this year, the LG V10 is an absolute beast. It's running on a Snapdragon 808, an Adreno 418, and 4 gigabytes of RAM, which of course leads to really outstanding performance when gaming, and everything runs really smooth on the V10 with no lag whatsoever. You can have multiple apps open, and transitioning from one app to the other is no problem at all for the V10, even when using the dual window feature. Really, performance on here is a 10 out of 10 and I have no complaints at all. Moving over to the software, unfortunately the LG V10 is not yet running on Android's Marshmallow for whatever reason, but it is on Android 5.1.1 and is set to get the update really soon. As always, LG has added their skin on top of stock Android, which for a lot of people is a major downside, but I actually do like LG's skin. However, this time around the icons are a bit larger than I'd like, so I will probably be changing this out for a more stock Android look. Anyways, this is LG's skin, and really not much has changed at all since previous versions. You still get the same features from before and tons of customization. A few things have changed here and there, but if you're coming from a previous LG device, this will be a very familiar experience. On a good note, the LG V10 does come with very few pre-installed apps, and a majority of them can be uninstalled, which I really appreciate. Like I stated before, the LG V10 comes with a removable 3000 mAh battery, which lasted me pretty much the entire day with moderate usage. I got around 3.5 to 4 hours of screen on time and still ended the day with about 10% battery left. It's heavy usage where battery life took a dip. Streaming videos and playing games on the V10 for a few minutes did cause a dip in battery life, so I did find myself having to charge up halfway through the day. Luckily, this wasn't that big of an issue thanks to the quick charger, which fully charged up the V10 within 1 hour. In general, battery life on the V10 was not the best, but also nowhere near terrible and still much better than a lot of phones out there. And finally, let's move over to the most talked about and most hyped up feature on the V10, the camera. The camera on the V10 is a 16 megapixel shooter with an f1.8 aperture and optical image stabilization. And if all of this sounds familiar, well, it's because it's the exact same camera that's found on the LG G4. And this is not a bad thing. There's a reason why they brought this camera over to the V10, and that's because it's amazing. Pictures are extremely great with very accurate colors, great dynamic range, and really great detail. These are some of the best pictures I've seen on any smartphone, and I'm really impressed. Of course, it does come with an HDR mode, which has a much faster shutter speed than many other devices out there, and it works really great as well. As for low lighting pictures, they actually look really great as well and maintain some good detail while still having lower levels of noise. Now, earlier I brought up the fact that there are two front-facing cameras on the V10. Both are 5 megapixel cameras, only one has an 8-degree lens and the other has a 120-degree wide angle lens for fitting more than one person in the frame. And I actually thought this was a nice feature to have. Image quality is also pretty good with the front-facing cameras. It's not the best out there, but it will get you some really great selfies. The LG G4 introduced a manual mode for the camera where you can change a lot of the settings from the ISO to the white balance and more. And with the LG V10, they not only brought it over to the images, but for the videos as well. So there's a lot you can mess around with here, like changing the ISO, the white balance, using manual focus, changing the direction of the audio, bumping up the decibels, and also adding a wind noise filter. Of course, like many phones these days, the LG V10 does record in 4K, and the quality here is actually very impressive as well. Topped with the manual mode, you're looking at getting some really great video quality that also comes with some really cool features like a slow-mo mode and more. Overall, the cameras on the LG V10 are awesome, and if you're big on image and video quality, then this is the phone that I would really recommend for you. In conclusion, really everything on the LG V10 was amazing. From the amazing specs, to the amazing camera, to the great battery life and performance, this is a device where really there are no cons at all, and if there are, it's all just personal preference. The secondary display is something a lot of us will need to get used to, but LG really made an amazing device this year that I'm sure will satisfy everyone who buys it. And if you were lucky enough to buy the LG V10 before the 15th of November and took advantage of that free 200GB SD card, extra battery, and battery charging cradle, well, you just got an amazing deal and an amazing phone. So that's going to wrap up this review, guys. As always, like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video because you know I always appreciate that. And other than that, I will see you guys in the next one.